Nicole, it is all yours.
Thanks, Dr. Curry. I'd like to introduce my mother, Amy, whose Zoom name is Dan because she hasn't figured out how to change it. And I also have my sister with us, and she just had her wisdom teeth out, so she's not turning her video on. So way to start out strong, family. And I also have a special guest from Penn State York, Mrs. Beth Brennan, with us today. So with that, I'll get started. I'm sharing a link in the chat, which is for the handout materials, and I'll start my presentation. All right. So that link in the chat is to a Wakelet board, which I'll be referencing throughout the presentation, and you'll know which slides correlate to the Wakelet because I've included the blue W logo in the top right-hand corner. So I thought I would start with my Teach Ag journey. My family has been a part of the dairy industry for as long as I can remember, and I grew up on my grandparents' dairy farm helping with the chores, eventually entered the show ring around 2nd grade, later joined 4-H and was a part of a dairy judging team. When I got to high school, I was still looking for ways to be involved in agriculture, and my high school did not have a formal school-based agricultural education program, but what we did have was a club of students who were interested in agriculture, the Future Farmers Club, or FFC. And so we did all the things a regular FFA chapter would do, like restore this farm all Super C. We had ag literacy events like Drive Your Tractor to School Day. And at that point in time, I was accepted to Cornell University to study dairy science. However, I wasn't quite sure if that was the career path for me. And as a senior, I became the York County Dairy Princess and realized that that was the perfect combination for me of growing up on a dairy farm and my passion for sharing that background with others. And so I really enjoyed the promotions where I would go into schools. And my club advisor he recommended to me that I shadow Mrs. Richwine at Northern York High School. And after spending the day with her, I quickly realized I needed to change my plans. So I switched my major. I accepted my offer to Penn State. I started at Penn State York for 1.5 semesters and later finished my Teach Ag journey at University Park. And we're here today, and I'm answering these 3 questions. The first is, who do I aspire to be as a teacher? So this is a visual representation of my teaching philosophy, and you can also find the full written version on the Wakelet board. But I have 3 objectives as a teacher. The first is to create a safe and accepting learning environment. We know from Maslow's hierarchy of needs that if students' basic safety and security needs are not met, that learning does not occur. So I want to make sure that my classroom is a safe space for everybody. My second objective is to create career and post-secondary ready students. And so that looks a little different for everybody, but I think that agricultural education really lends itself to being applicable to everyone's lives, whether that's just because we eat 3 meals a day or if that's your career interest. So I hope that students will really find a value in what they're learning and be able to connect that to their life. My last objective is to encourage lifelong learning. I've always really valued being an inquisitive person, and I think students learn the most when they ask questions and then find answers to their own questions. I think of Kolb's experiential model for learning, which encourages students to learn by doing, feeling, watching, thinking, and doing, and answering those questions for themselves. I can accomplish these objectives by integrating the 3-circle model of classroom instruction, leadership through FFA, and experiential learning through supervised agricultural experiences. And the program is then complemented by those industry recognized certifications that students can earn. I hope that students that leave my program leave with a few skills, and some of those being effective communication, teamwork, time management, and creative and critical thinking. In order to run an effective classroom, there have to be procedures, expectations, and consequences, and these are the posters I've created for my classroom. The procedures, these are the things that need to happen day in and day out for learning to occur. And so I ask that when students come into my class, they are ready, focused, and settling in for the day, and they can show me that by beginning the bell work. And the same is true when they're leaving class. They can complete that exit activity and remain seated until the bell rings. My expectations, these set the bar for the environment in the classroom, and I ask that students are respectful, engaged in the lesson, and responsible with classroom materials. I also ask that they're professional, whether that be among their peers or with guest speakers that we may have in for that particular day, and that they're safe. This applies mostly in the learning laboratories like the shop. If the expectations are not met, then we have consequences, and these are aligned to the school district I'm student teaching with, Cumberland Valley, and their discipline policy. If the expectations aren't met, first we'll have a warning. This could be informally during class where I recognize that an expectation has not been met, or this could be a chat after class. Then if that continues, we'll have to contact home and then eventually the office. Since I'll be teaching in a hybrid environment, I've incorporated these posters into my digital classroom because these procedures, expectations, and consequences don't just apply in face-to-face learning, but also in online learning. If I were to create my ideal agriculture education program, I would model it like this and include this scope and sequence of how students would move through the courses. I would recommend that the students start in an introductory course to agriculture that they can take as a middle schooler or in 9th grade. This is a broad course that would cover topics in plant science, animal science, environmental science, food science, just to give the students a taste of what agriculture is like. From there, they could choose the pathways that they're most interested in, whether that be animal science, plant science, or agriculture mechanics. And if once they take that second level introductory class, they can further identify the specific subject areas they're most interested in. So in the mechanics pathway, that could look like metal fabrication, woodworking, or engines. Any student who wants to take an elective course, those are the ones listed in green at the bottom, and they can be taken after any introductory course. On the Wakelet board, I have a slide further outlining the units attached specifically to the mechanics pathway and how students could progress through those. You'll see that they build on each other, starting with basic safety and career information, going the whole way to MIG, TIG, and oxy-fuel and cutting. But of course, none of this matters if there aren't students to be in the program, so this is a video that my classmate and I, Emily, created targeted towards parents that would encourage the parents to enroll their child in the agricultural education program. So I'll play a clip of that now. And welcome to the agriculture education program at Valley High School.
Hi, I'm Ms. Schultz, and we are so excited to have
I'd like to take a moment to highlight a few career paths that some of our former students have taken. In the bottom right-hand corner is a photo of Derek at his landscaping business. Derek entered this career path right out of high school after finding a passion for plant science and earning a proficiency award for his entrepreneurship SAE project. Derek was able to use the technical skills he learned in class, like how to calculate the proper amount of fertilizers to use, certifications he earned like the pesticide applicator's license, and soft skills he learned from his SAE project like customer satisfaction, effective communication, and maintaining accurate records to enter the workforce right after high school. So you'll see that we highlighted 3 different kind of options students could have in this program, entering the workforce right out of high school with the landscaping example, students who pursue a 2-year or certificate degree like our HVAC technician, or students who go on to a 4-year college or university like our veterinary technician. I recognize as an educator that it's important to recruit a diverse group of students, and I am a supporter of the Ag Ed for All campaign to ensure that happens. The second question for today is, what experiential education opportunities have I engaged in to become a better agricultural educator? First, I would like to highlight a few courses at Penn State that have helped me become a well-rounded teacher. The first being AEE 350, Teaching Methods for Agriculture and Environmental Laboratories. This is probably the most hands-on course a student can take in this major, and I took it remotely this semester, but it taught me a lot about how I want to be as a virtual and hybrid teacher. I really appreciated how my professor, John Seaman, gave me not just alternative assignments for the sake of completing them, but they were meaningful. And so while my classmates were building a doghouse using the power tools, marking and measuring the lumber in person, I was doing the same thing at home with cardboard and paper. So this has, I really valued the alternative assignment because it wasn't just busy work, and I think students will appreciate that if I can create meaningful virtual assignments for them as well. It's also just a great cost savings, even if face-to-face learning is occurring because students can make mistakes on the cardboard while they're still learning those processes instead of making mistakes on the raw materials, especially when you have a tight budget. Ag 160, Introduction to Ethics and Issues in Agriculture, was just a course that broadened my perspectives on agriculture and made me consider others' viewpoints. My professor was also doing research in lab-grown meat, which was not a topic area I was familiar in, so that was neat to just learn more information about. And lastly, Geography 210 really gave me the foundation for teaching environmental science and complemented my environmental resource management minor well. So in addition to my major, I also have two minors, international agriculture and environmental resource management. And I have also pursued the following certifications to further demonstrate my qualifications to teach agriculture. In the technology realm, I'm a certified Google educator and certified Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, and Word, which will help me greatly as a hybrid teacher. I also completed the OSHA 10 for agriculture, which will help me develop a safety culture in my laboratory. My cohort and I completed the National Safe Tractor and Machinery Operation Program sponsored by HOSTA. As an instructor, I can also certify my students in this industry recognized area. I have the beef quality assurance training, as well as I'm certified through Penn State Extension as a Teach for Forest educator. And lastly, through the American Heart Association for First Aid, CPR, and AED in infants and adults and children. I'm also a member of the following professional organizations within my profession: the National Association of Agricultural Educators, the Pennsylvania Association of Agricultural Educators, the Association of Career and Technical Education, and the Pennsylvania State Education Association. Academically, I'm involved in the following professional organizations: Gamma Sigma Delta, Alpha Tau Alpha, the National Society of Leadership and Success, and the Schreier Honors College. Within the agricultural industry, I'm a member of the Pennsylvania Society of Farm Women, United States Holstein Association, and United States Jersey Cattle Association. As an educator in a fast-paced and changing industry, it's so important that I remain relevant and up to date on information, and I can do that by obtaining these certifications and being a part of these professional organizations. Some further professional development I participated in. Like my cohort members, I've attended the Future Agri-Science Teacher Symposium, PAAE Northern Regional Meeting, and the Second Mile webinar series. However, I have also done many additional workshops. Two that I'd like to point out are the High Impact Strategies for Student Teachers, which was required by my student teaching site, but I really valued the digital engagement strategies that were presented to us, as well as they set a context for how I can help my school district achieve their academic goals through the multi-tiered system of support and using the universal design for learning. Also coming up in January is the ICEV Virtual Professional Development Seminar that I plan to take part in over the winter break to learn more about how I can engage students in agriculture, which is typically a very hands-on industry, virtually. Some internships that I'd like to highlight. For the past 2 summers, I've been an intern with the Pennsylvania Friends of Agriculture Foundation, which is the nonprofit of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. I had 2 very different experiences thanks to the coronavirus, but the first year I worked extensively with the Ag Ed Mobile Science Lab in creating 3 new lessons that dealt with hydroponics, nutrients, and the everyday uses of soybeans. I was also a presenter at the Pennsylvania Educators Ag Institute. This is a professional development seminar for teachers that not just teach agriculture, but your core subjects like math, English, history, to help them learn how they can incorporate agriculture into their classroom. These are some teachers building their cattle chute systems. So my workshop was on ag engineering, STEM, and Temple Grandin. And so they were designing their own systems using cardboard, and this is them presenting their work to the group. I also helped with many ag literacy events like Ag Progress Days and Ag Night at the Ballpark. The second year was much more digital, but still a great opportunity nonetheless, and I was able to be a part of the Workforce Development Committee as a part of the Grow Pennsylvania Agriculture Workforce Initiative. And so they host the Pennsylvania Ag and Food Careers website, which has over 60 videos from industry professionals talking about their daily routine, maybe trainings they attended to have their career in agriculture. And so I proposed a tab for educators where they could go to teach their students about these topics. And as a part of that, I created 4 web scavenger hunts that use the videos on the website, have the students watch them and then complete the activities. The Educator Resources tab on the website also hosts a lesson bank for teachers who are wanting to do more with agriculture careers in their classroom. This resource, as a result, was approved by the National Ag in the Classroom as an instructional resource and the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I would consider this my professional contribution, not just to my cohort, but also Pennsylvania ag teachers, as it's been highlighted in many newsletters that educators get, as well as physical mailing packets. Again, for the second time, I presented at the Pennsylvania Educators Ag Institute, except virtually, and this year I did a lesson on desktop hydroponic systems. This was really neat because I not just only got to work with educators from Pennsylvania, but also all over the country because now it was virtual. And so I've been working with teachers in New Mexico where they deal with hydroponics very frequently because they have a desert in their state. And so this has been a neat experience to work with educators across the country as a result of this internship. And since leaving this summer, I've still remained on the staff at the Friends of Agriculture Foundation, and I'm working on developing their virtual Ag Literacy Week, which my cooperating center's FFA is also participating in. So I'm very excited to combine those two. I also completed an internship with Give Local York, and I helped obtain a $20,000 grant, which was a skill set that I am really happy that I had the chance to fine tune because I know that as an educator, I'll be applying for grants, if not yearly, almost every month. I've also been a contractor with the Center for Dairy Excellence Foundation and just fine-tuning my skills in creating engaging digital content for the Discover Dairy program. An additional experience I'd like to highlight is my involvement with the Graham Center for Innovation and Collaboration, which is a program I started at Penn State York. They encourage the entrepreneurial mindset, which has really challenged me to be more creative and think outside of the box. So my team and I participated in the Startup Challenge with a business plan for a customizable garden service. We had to do market research, develop a business plan, and create a pitch. We later won the contest, and my 2 teammates actually went on to further pursue the LLC and create the business. And while this is applicable not just to an ag business class, I think running a business is a lot like running an ag program. You have to engage the community stakeholders, you have to continuously plan, and you have to focus on developing relationships, whether that's with customers or with students. I've also studied abroad in Chile over winter break, which was an amazing experience, not just because I got to use my environmental resource management minor to look at the different biomes, but also because I learned a lot about how to be an educator and take students on a trip, which I know I'll have to do in the FFA context. I also got to fine tune my Spanish and work with, which I hope to use when working with ESL and ELL learners. I am hoping to do a biomes virtual field trip to Chile when I teach that with my environmental science class. I also studied domestically in Montana and New England, which just opened my eyes to the diversity that exists within agriculture across the United States. I've been a teaching assistant for the Animal Science 201 class at University Park, which has taught me how not just to create engaging laboratory experiments, but also support students in receiving their accommodations through the university system. And finally, I helped coordinate the PASA Youth Conference. I've been an ag advocate helping college seniors navigate the college application process, and I've been an algebra and trigonometry tutor. So how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship? I will be student teaching at Cumberland Valley High School, which has 2 teachers, Darla Romberger and Jean Case. I'll be working directly with Jean, but also with the help of Darla. It's a very large school district with nearly 3,000 students, although my classes range anywhere from 3 to 26 students. In our 413 program planning class, we were asked to evaluate our cooperating center using the Chapter 339 guidelines or the National Quality Program Standards. I chose the National Quality Program Standards, and these are 3 strengths that I think my cooperating center has. They are fully implementing the 3-circle model. So for classroom instruction, they lean heavily on the CASE curriculum. So I'll gain experience using a prepared curriculum, but also modifying it to fit my students and my classroom needs. They have an active FFA chapter that's still meeting even virtually, and students are embracing the SAE for All model. They also have a very active FFA alumni chapter that helps the students financially, whether that's with SAE grants or with post-secondary scholarships. And they have a digital presence. I knew of Cumberland Valley before they were even my cooperating center because of the posts on Instagram and Twitter where they're highlighting great things their students are doing or just general ag literacy facts. So kudos to them for being in that audience. They have 5 learning laboratories, 2 classrooms, 1 science lab, a shop, which includes 8 welding stations, various woodworking equipment, and plumbing and electrical supplies. They also have an indoor greenhouse that utilizes grow chambers and hydroponic stations. Like I alluded to earlier, I will be teaching on a hybrid schedule. So for students, this looks like a half day every day, meaning all of my face-to-face classes meet in the morning and all of my Zoom classes meet in the afternoon. The A and B groups rotate on the face-to-face days. So students say in the plant science class, the A group comes on Monday and the B group comes on Thursday. Overall, for the whole week, that looks like having students in person 1 time, having them on Zoom 1 time, and then they complete 3 asynchronous lessons by themselves. So what will I be responsible for teaching while I'm there? I have 6 courses in total, and I'd like to pull out some highlights from each and also talk about how I'm going to integrate FFA and SAE into these courses. The first course I'm taking is plant science. I'll have anatomy, taxonomy, and floriculture units. The floriculture unit specifically will be a community-based unit of instruction, and you can find a sample unit plan and lesson plan for this course on the Wakelet board. I mentioned that this is a community-based unit of instruction, which means we're going to engage the community in our projects, but also in our lessons. So first, they will create a flower press, which is the $15 project. In the flower press, they will press anything we have growing in our indoor greenhouse. And from those floral designs that they press, they will make greeting cards, whether that's for members of the community in a nursing home, a teacher they want to share a message with, or someone at home they want to write a note to. They're going to use the concepts from the unit of floral design, the elements and principles of design to create a greeting card. And then at the end of the unit, we're also going to have guest speakers from the community come in to share about their floriculture careers, whether they be from the Penn State Flower Trial Gardens or a local nursery or greenhouse. I'll have 2 sections of environmental science, teaching biomes, climate, pollution, and soils and agriculture. I mentioned earlier, this is where I'm excited to use my environmental resource management minor to my advantage and hopefully incorporate my trip to Chile to talk about biomes with the students, take them on a virtual field trip. In my introduction to agriculture class, I'll be teaching the plant science unit, animals and society and careers unit, and animal science unit. My students will already have an foundational SAE set up, but I hope to expand on that by including check-ins, having students present about their foundational SAEs in class. Additionally, the Animals and Society and Careers unit will end with a virtual mock interview and students creating a resume and cover letter. So this brings in skills from the FFA Employability Skills CDE, as well as skills like financial management and employability that students can use to get jobs in the community. For my food science class, the students will do the health and safety unit and a preference and availability unit. During the health and safety unit, I'm hoping to include resources from the Global Teach Ag Network, like the Poetry Times Hunger, online modules. And during the preference and availability unit, we're going to further elaborate on the food science CDE while students complete sensory evaluations, either at home or in class. In the SAE course, this is where students kind of had free reign to come up with topics they wanted to learn about. So I chose biotechnology, and we're going to read the book, The Bitter Side of Sweet, which is about 2 boys that grow up on a cacao plantation in Africa. So we're going to tie in some global agriculture concepts to that course as well. Overall, though, students in the SAE course will give updates on their project. We're going to focus on setting SMART goals with weekly check-ins. And in the animal science course, I'll be a guest teacher in Ms. Romberger's class for the nutrition unit. Overall, I'm organizing these lessons and units in a binder system, but also using my school's learning management system, Schoology, and they also utilize Google Drive. One thing I think I've done a very good job of is variability, which is a characteristic of highly effective teachers, according to Rosenshine and First. The unit assessments for these units vary from exams to student choice activities, which gives the students more autonomy over their learning and how they choose to demonstrate that they've mastered the concepts, as well as performance assessments like the virtual mock interview. You can find a complete calendar of my student teaching experience on the Wakelet board, but two things I would like to highlight are the environmental science team meetings, which occur every Tuesday at lunch. My environmental science course is also taught by 6 building teachers, so we collaborate to make sure that we're all on the same page and students are receiving the same instruction across the board, as well as divvy up the tasks for the week. So I'll be participating in those. The FFA chapter also meets once a month and the officers meet twice a month, so I'll be serving in that role as advisor. I'm also starting off my internship with a busy day. My first day of observation will be the drive-by green hand jacket ceremony. So I'm excited for one of the very few in-person events that I'll be able to be a part of. Overall, these are the goals I've set for myself for student teaching. I want to capitalize on the face-to-face engagements. So when I have students in class, I want to make sure we're doing a hands-on activity or a lab to capitalize on that one day a week that I have them. I want to expand on my strategies for digital learning. So this could look like using Google Forms as a form of assessment. It could look like using Kahoot as a review activity. I also want to practice the role of FFA advisor, CDE coach, and SAE supervisor. So I previously mentioned that I didn't attend a high school with an ag program, so I'm excited to implement all 3 circles in harmony and practice that while I'm a student teacher. And lastly, I would like to formalize my post-secondary career paths for myself. So while I've always thought that being an ag teacher would be the best job in the world, I've also very much enjoyed my internships, which have largely been with nonprofits. So I'm hoping that this experience will solidify some goals for myself. And so I'll leave you with my why. Why do I want to teach agriculture? I'm in front of you today because of some very influential teachers in my life. I think of Mrs. Huffnagel, my National Honor Society advisor in high school, Mrs. Barnes, my environmental science teacher, my Aunt Shirley, a retired kindergarten teacher, my dad, a counselor at an alternative school, and informally, my extension educator, Linda Spar. These are all people who have supported my goals, and I hope to do the same for students by supporting their goals and helping them find their passions in agriculture. Whether that's pursuing a career in agriculture, pursuing a hobby in agriculture, or just being an informed consumer at the grocery store. I'm really excited to begin this next chapter of my teaching career. And with that, I'll take any questions from the group. Thank you.
That was a great way to end the presentation. Join me in please showing our appreciation to Nicole for an outstanding presentation. We're going to transition now to our question and answer session. So again, I'll ask that you please queue up any questions you have in the chat, or just let it be known that you'd like to ask a question, and I'll certainly call on you if you'd like to do it orally. I'll start us off by going back to your one of your very first slides on your teaching philosophy, Nicole. And you talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I would like you to please elaborate that a little bit more. Talk to me about where the rubber meets the road on how you actually create an environment where those lower level blooms are taken care of. What actionable, intentional strategies can you engage with as a teacher to make sure that lower level blooms is taken care of?
Sure. So at the very bottom of the Bloom's pyramid is those basic needs of safety and security. And so as a teacher, a way that I can create that environment in my classroom is by using inclusive language and not tolerating language that is not from students and other faculty in my classroom. So we learned a lot about this at the FAST symposium, and that includes everything from addressing someone using their proper pronouns to just being mindful of all the ways the educational system is very exclusive, like having off for Christmas break while not all students celebrate Christmas. So being mindful of those things that occur on an everyday basis that are maybe normal for me, but may not be normal for the students in my classroom can just help create a better, more inclusive environment for everyone.
Thank you. You have a chat question given from Ms. Kayla, and she asks you, how do you anticipate yourself inserting into the CV community to create a lasting impression?
Yeah, this is something I'm really hoping I have the opportunity to do. I've been a kind of a half member of the Cumberland Valley community while I did my internship in Camp Hill, so I'm familiar with the area. I'm hoping this looks like me being able to attend sporting events or community events that are happening. I know the FFA is very active, and so I'm hoping that I can lean on them to show me the community as well. But those are just some examples, and I'm hoping we have the opportunity to be in person and engage that way.
Don't we all? Don't we all? I'm looking back to our faculty and staff panel. Who would like to ask our first question from that group? Carson, go ahead.
I can go first. Nicole, fantastic presentation. Everything was laid out tremendously, and it's very obvious that you practice, so I appreciate that. You have a lot of job experience. You've traveled, and it looks like you have some experience with livestock showing as well. So these are all great things for SAE development and SAE evaluation. How do you bring these in to work with kids to make their SAEs better in terms of their experience and their enjoyment?
It's a great question. I'm hoping that I can use those connections that I've spent the past 4 years developing to connect students with employers in the community where they could have a placement or an internship SAE. I can also connect with other producers where they could maybe lease an animal from a farm if they weren't able to have the animal on their property. But I would ultimately throw that back on the students and say that if they're not interested in what their SAE project is about, then we need to look for one where they are super interested. And if that's not somewhere where I have experience, I think that's a great time for us to learn together and gain experience together to create a really awesome SAE project for that student.
Thank you.
I believe Dr. Foster figured out how to raise his hand because we limited that option in the emoticon spot, but he found it in the participant window and all the way from his sabbatical chair. What do you have, Dr. Foster?
Nicole, I enjoyed your presentation. Thank you for allowing me to attend. You know, we have loved having you as a teacher candidate for 3 years, as you indicated, be a participant in the Global Learning and Ag Conference. And so as I look to you going to a cooperating center with Cumberland Valley that I know is also very globally minded, I have a simple question. What are some ways that you're going to stretch the global mindset of your students in the spring? Do you have any plans, and would you mind sharing some of those highlights with us?
Yeah, so beyond sharing my own study abroad experience and engaging in those virtual modules from the Global Teach Ag Network, like the Poetry Times Hunger, I'm hoping that I can incorporate the GLAG conference on-demand sessions into my SAE course. It's going to happen, unfortunately, after the conference, but I hope I can go back and utilize those resources. I also think just asking students to investigate their own question about agriculture across the globe could be really interesting. And having them bring those questions and present what they found with the class could be a great way to spark some conversations around global agriculture.
Thank you. I appreciate you being a great role model for all your peers of jumping in as a first year or a second year or a third year student and not waiting to the end to seek out these professional development opportunities. So thank you for being a great Penn Stater.
That's a good segue to Nina, who asks in the chat, what's your advice to a first-year student in our program beyond jumping in early and taking advantage of opportunities as frequently as possible?
So that would be my advice, is if you think you're even mildly interested, you should go after that. I'm guilty to that to a fault, where I'm too involved and I do too much and I don't take enough time for myself. But I have talked to so many students in their senior year that say, I wish I would have done that. And I honestly can't say I wish I would have done anything. And so my advice to you, Nina, would be to just go after it and pursue your dreams and your goals. And if it helps you get any closer to those professional or personal goals, you should absolutely go after it.
Great. Any more questions from the faculty panel before we swing back to students? Go ahead, Beth.
Oh, okay. Sorry, big John's on my screen there for a minute. So Nicole, great presentation, incredibly detailed and thorough as with everything that you do. It's very evident that you are a very internally motivated student. You go out after everything. When you start student teaching, you're going to find that not all students are as motivated as you are, and many teachers struggle with motivating their students. Do you have some strategies, or have you been thinking about strategies to motivate those students that aren't grade motivated or as motivated as you yourself?
Sure. So I'm going to fall back on my AE 311 course where we talked about the fixed and the growth mindset. And I think just by modeling the growth mindset of always wanting to learn and ask questions, that's a great way for students to see that in action. I would also add that to engage those students who maybe aren't interested, that's just a simple conversation like, what are you interested in and how can we make that happen in class, as your SAE project, as the next FFA chapter event. Cater to those students to bring them to those events and ask them what they're most interested in.
Great. Lauren, who's also a student in the program, asks, how do you find and seek out those opportunities to be engaged? What were some ways you found successful?
I would say a big way that I found most of these opportunities was in the weekly newsletter emails that we get. And if it's not there, you just have to ask somebody. A lot of opportunities I've gotten because a professor sent an email like, hey, I think you should check this out. And so I checked it out and decided if it was for me or not. But staying in contact with your professors, your academic advisors, those in the agricultural community that you think are role models, they will connect you and help you find those opportunities that are best for you.
And back to Dr. Ewing.
All right, appreciate it. So Nicole, in 412, we talked a little bit about, good teaching and how we plan for that and how we teach and how we assess. I was wondering if you could give me an example of good planning and how you align a specific objective to how you teach it in the lesson, and then finally how you assess that specific objective. So if you think back to the midterm specifically, maybe the last question, and I could share my screen if you need a specific example, but if you could just share a little bit briefly of maybe what's an objective that you might teach in one of these classes when you student teach, how you might instruct and implement instruction around that objective, and then ultimately, how might you assess that in a way that is aligned?
Sure, that's a big question, Dr. Ewing, but I think I'm going to try and tackle it.
I think you'll do fine.
So objectives at the bare minimum, these are our goals for the period, whether that's a 42-minute period or an asynchronous lesson. And I'm thinking to my floriculture unit, an objective that I have for that unit is that students will be able to safely use the table saw to cut 2 pieces of wood for our floral press. So what that looks like in the broader terms of my planning for the unit and the assessment that goes with that is that I have a rubric that details how students can earn or lose points based on how they perform the objective. And it's important that the objective is not written at a level that's down here, and then we assess students up here, and there's kind of a gap in between. So if I just told students on day 1, go use the table saw, that would not be an example of alignment and not very safe. So I have to kind of scaffold that instruction and those objectives to make sure that we can connect all of those on the same level.
All right, that was a great example, and I appreciate you bringing ag mechanics into it. So that right earns you more points, just so you know. Thanks for sharing.
Other questions from the audience? Darla and Jean, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I know you're here, and if you'd like to have any words of encouragement or just any comments for Nicole, we would certainly appreciate them. You guys might be teaching for all I know, or getting kids involved with something, so I don't also want to put you on the spot.
Just stopped teaching at 3:20, but we're super excited to have you come to school and loved listening to your presentation. It's definitely a year of learning how to do all those digital resources and becoming comfortable with all of those and very fluent in the digital world. So you'll definitely get a lot of experience with that, but we're just excited that you're coming.
Thank you. I'm excited to be coming.
Any other last minute questions for Nicole? Nicole, I thought you did an awesome job. I want to thank you for all of your hard work, not just in preparation for this presentation, but for all that you've done for the program and being an example for your peers around you. You've done amazing work, and we want to show our appreciation to you as well. For the Zoom audience with us here today, before you give your last congratulations, as I see you do now, we will have a closed door session with Nicole on all things internal lesson plans and unit plans. So this will conclude the public portion. If you want to say your last goodbyes before you log off, that will be totally appropriate, but we will unfortunately have to kick you out here in the next minute or so that we can do that closed door portion. So join me in thanking Nicole one last time for an awesome job.
I'd just like to say one thing. This is Beth from the York campus. We are very, very fortunate that Nicole did spend a year and a half on our campus. And so it could have turned out differently. So we're really glad she made that decision, and great that she'll be still close by. Cumberland Valley is not very far from your campus. So thank you, and good luck to all of you.
We appreciate your support.
Yeah,
great job, Nicole.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah.
I was going to rename Dan just for fun and just call it like Mom or something, but
yeah.
No, we can't hear you.
You can go now, though, Mom. Thanks for coming. Oh, Lauren's probably sleeping. Let me go kick her off. Nope, oh, there she goes. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my. Let's see. Stop recording.